To chat with everybody today about what we're up to at Halda. Little quick background on me. My entrepreneurial journey, if you will, started fresh out of college. So Sid Cromanhook, who you guys might know from Album Ventures, was my first boss out of college. I was helping them with Zinch after the Chegg acquisition, ended up in China. Then I was fortunate to get an intro from him to Podium, and was with those guys from the time we were just 5 guys above a bike shop until we were about 250 guys, and then it got a little too big for me. So I actually started working on this business right after leaving Podium, took a little hiatus in the middle to work on another business that we took through Y Combinator, and then we broke that apart a little bit, and 2 of us are working on this while another partner works on our YC business. Before I jump into Halda and what we're up to, I do want to make sure I know what anybody came here to learn today, so I can maybe tailor some of what I share to stuff that you guys might be working on or interested in. Is there anybody come today with something they're hoping to learn and or do? No guarantees that I can help you with it, but it's good to be aware. Anybody? Learn about me? It's going to be very short and very boring. Okay. Well, just jump into what Halda's up to. So we started Halda back in 2017. And in the beginning, we were a paid media company, not a whole lot to differentiate us other than we focused on the higher ed market. So from our Zinch and Chegg days, we knew we had a lot of contacts there. We knew that they wasted a lot of money, and we thought we could be helpful. One of the biggest learnings, though, as the first couple years were a big struggle, and we could find new deals, but it was hit and miss, and we couldn't find a consistent way to build the business, which is a big problem, right? If you can't figure out that formula for how to grow, it's hard to plan and be able to predictably move ahead. So the biggest thing that got re-ingrained in me is research. You need to ask questions, you need to be curious, and you need to figure out what people want and where the gaps are in a market. So the sad part of this story is it took us a few years to get really heavy into some research for this business, but we did it, and here's what we learned. First off, universities, and I'm realizing now this graph might be a little small, but their graduate programs, which is what we were focused on, spend a lot of money on paid media. 25% are spending $80,000 or more, and they are spending it in all of the most predictable places, right? Google, Facebook, etc. We did a big benchmark study. This was in conjunction with NAGAP, which is an industry partner there. And the trouble was that we found is while they were driving a lot of traffic and they were paying to get eyeballs, almost every website that we reviewed had the exact same calls to action. And so they said here that leads were their top priority. That's what they wanted to get from the money that they were spending. And yet, as we looked at their calls to action, they were pretty uninspiring. We reviewed hundreds of landing pages and websites, and we realized that everyone was saying, apply now, learn more, and contact us in exchange for someone's contact information. So that just got us thinking, that's not great. It's universities in particular here offer a ton of value to someone that in terms of education, their future, their career, where they can go. But the trouble is if they wanted leads, what we kept telling people in a consultative manner over and over again is you're not giving them any reason to engage with you right now, today, in this moment. And as we started to look around, we realized there are a lot of other industries that do a lot better at this. E-commerce, for example, have a whole bunch of services and offers to make sure that when someone comes to the website, they're converting, because their whole business is around that. But what Lance and I started to realize is that there's a lot of other businesses that are a little bit more old school that haven't quite converted over to the importance of having a high converting website. And so as you think about the calls to action that you frequently see, request info, apply now, learn more, or in other industries, you have a free demo, a free trial, free consultation. Sometimes those aren't really super aligned with what the visitor on that website is hoping to figure out, or the answers that they're hoping to get. And that's where we got that idea that you saw on the first slide of forms that give back as much as they take. Traditionally, a form is about taking information from someone. And usually the response that you get is, "We'll be in touch," which is pretty underwhelming most of the time. Increasingly, people really want instant feedback. They want to know and get the value that they're looking for right away. So the first thing that we wanted to test is simply, okay, what's a really lightweight way for us to get started, to see if some of these assumptions will work in terms of, can we offer something of more immediate value, and will people take advantage of that? So we partnered up with some of our existing paid media partners, as well as over time found that we could sign up a lot of new partners to do just this. So in some scenarios, like William Jessup, which GIF, I guess, has already played, and I must have set it up wrong, so it's not replaying. But for them in their adult programs, traditionally they'd been asking people to just apply now. Well, what we told them is, do you have anything better that we can offer them? They said, well, we have this credit for work experience or life experience exchange, but we don't really know how to present it to someone. They went from converting less than 1% of their traffic into a Learn More form to now converting 11% of their traffic by letting them know, hey, you can get credit for your work experience, and we've got this calculator to help you figure that out. For ASU and their military population, it was really hard for them to pinpoint those guys, and we said, okay, well, let's target certain parts of the country through IP address so we can see if they're coming from a military base or those types of areas, and let's selectively display to those visitors on your website and offer to calculate what their transfer credits might look like for their military experience. So we started to really niche down and say, okay, how can we, A, identify the right populations, and B, give them something of value back so that we have a really equitable exchange. So rather than simply saying, I want to take info from you, it's, no, I have something to give you, and of course, the way you pay for that is with your information. So the exciting thing that we found is that, A, it works, and that we've been able to more than 4x on average the conversion rate that, in particular, higher ed was receiving. And then these leads have become some of the best leads that they have in terms of conversion, bringing them through the funnel, and applying. So going back to where I started on the presentation, what we learned with this is, from our research, is finally we found a way to, A, differentiate the business from being just a general paid media company to having a really unique voice and a unique message in the market, which, B, finally allowed us to predictably grow the business. We were able to hire a few sales people that helped us, and you can see where we started doing this back in July. We were able to grow our revenues really well. Now, I was tempted to make this graph prettier when I was putting this presentation together. I don't know how many of you guys have seen, what's that Theranos thing, that documentary, right? Where they just got caught up in this fake it till you make it thing. And when we were out in California, man, we felt that so strong, that whole fake it till you make it. And I just got really tired of the bullshit, because entrepreneurship is hard. It's got ups and downs. I thought, no, we're not going to make this pretty. This is like the real story of just all the dumb mistakes we've made, and hopefully the things we're doing right. So this is what we learned. When we first went to market, we thought, the best way for us to do this is in a CPL model. Pay for what you get. CPL, I mean cost per lead. So we're selling it per lead, and in higher ed, we were able to command $50 per lead that we were generating, and it was going great. Our revenues really grew, but what we realized was that there was a breaking point right there, because with some of our larger partners, we could really push volume. But anytime when you're dealing with technology, like, there's this balance between the value you generate. We were definitely generating enough value to command that price, but eventually for some of our high volume partners, we realized at that point they can just build it themselves, right? So there's that breaking point of being able to charge according to the value that you have, but not charging so much that it stops making sense to work with you, and just, hire a little dev shop, spend, maybe $10,000 all at once, but get something that works for an individual client. So we hit that breaking point, And then last month had the painful transition from the CPL model to where now we're offering a CPL plus subscription, which of course doesn't really help us maximize our revenues, but does help us keep partners renewing because they're able to access the value that we offer. So at this point, we're moving forward with CPL as an introductory way for people to get used to us, or if they just have low volumes, it allows us to capture more of that low-end market because they can just pay us according to what we actually generate. And then on the higher end, we have subscription basis to make sure that we don't cross over that threshold and are charging them so much that, again, it makes sense for them to do something else. So that's where we're at in our journey so far. And we have, again, we're growing well in higher ed. The one thing that we're working on is we believe that there's applications beyond higher ed. And we've started some pilot tests because if any of you have worked in that industry, you know it's a very long sales process, and it can have a lot of red tape, and it's very cyclical in terms of when their budgets renew, et cetera. So again, growing well, but as I thought about the community here, and just so you know what we're working on is we launched the MVP, we've had a successful test, we've proven good market value, and at this point, we're actively recruiting more technical talent because we see a world where this goes beyond just calculators and can become really sophisticated in how you personalize an offer to a website visitor to make it even more hand in glove with who they are, what they're looking for. And so we're looking for additional technical talent so we can build a very, very smart product. We're looking to pilot test in new markets. We've got a few going in legal, some in B2B SaaS, just any industry that you look at websites and they all have the exact same calls to action. And then, of course, the candid thoughts and advice from the team here. So that's what I've got for you. That's Halda and what we're up to. Thanks for listening. Any questions?
Thanks. That was awesome. Really appreciate the candor and the authenticity and the omission of BS on the graph. That's good. How are you going to know when it's time to focus on more than just your beachhead of higher ed? I'm just curious how you think about that, because I'm sure there are lots of other verticals you could go into, but how do you know when you're strong enough to go into one of those?
Yeah, I think what we're cautious of is just being aware of industries that already have really good solutions for this type of thing, right? And so we think a lot about industries that are a little bit more antiquated in terms of, for instance, as we did our research, some of it's just been interviews with people that run certain types of businesses. And so something like e-commerce, they have so much at their disposal, and they're also deeply integrated with the systems of Shopify and BigCommerce or whatever else that they're using, that technological leap is just too high for us, especially right now. But as we look at other places like higher ed, which is surprising, right? They have a lot of resources. They're big organizations, but they're just behind in everything. But so that's been good. I think, so what we're looking at, and I don't know how smart this is, but what we're looking at is to specialize in a couple of these ones that aren't as advanced. So again, thinking about law firms, every single law firm site that you see will say free consultation, right? And yet we know that personal injury firms, the other piece of this is, are they spending a lot of money on ad spend, right? And so if they're spending money on ad spend and they all have the same kind of call to action, we think those are really good markets for us to enter, especially in a realm of in terms of legal and something like HVAC, these industries that have relied on other lead sources, but increasingly their internet spend and marketing is going up and they need to convert better. We feel like those are good entry points for us where the technological requirements won't be too high, but they'll see a really big ROI in the early stages, which will give us runway and time to build and make our technology more advanced. But I'd love to know your thoughts on that because we're super early on. We're anxious to find a couple other verticals that can sell faster and have a shorter sales cycle. But anyway, those are our thoughts right now. What thoughts do you have?
Well, I love your thoughts. I would personally think that I would personally think the way you think about that is a good way to think about it. I would add one other thing to it, and that is hitting some level of profitability and stability, like those two things, in your current graph with your current beachhead, because I know education really well, and it is a beast, and the sales cycle is really long, but you've already got some really good traction there, and I think you can leverage that far better and far faster than you would be able to start in a new vertical. I could be totally wrong on that, but that would be my opinion.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. Fortunately, in this business, we've been able to bootstrap the whole thing. So we've got some revenues from our paid media side, as well as the revenues that are increasing quickly in this product. So to date, we haven't had to take any money, and we're paying everybody out of the profits so far. But that is something we think about a ton, is we don't want to waste time. Like, we do have something going. We don't want to get too distracted, nor do we want to be an inch deep and a mile wide. Yeah.
I don't know too much about the marketing space, but who's currently doing the marketing for those doctors and lawyers? Who's created those sites in the first place with if all the similar call to actions are the same? Is it the same marketing company targeting all those people?
So from what I know so far, it seems to be pretty diverse. Usually local marketing companies, small shops, people that they just find nearby. As you get bigger, they will have internal marketing teams. I don't know why people aren't more creative.
I'm thinking here about, I'm huge on collaboration, and I think about this type of stuff all the time. I'm fascinated with it. Have you thought about helping the community of those local marketing agencies that are targeting these people and helping them increase their revenue by giving them the subscription model so that they can renew those contracts with those people already, so you don't have to do much of the work?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting approach. To date, our technology isn't advanced enough to do that. It's still a lot of customization on the back end, but I do think that as we make it more of a self-serve platform, that could be a really good avenue for us. Personally, I always get a little leery of other people selling my solution. I've just seen it not work a lot of the time because they have potentially other products that are more profitable for them, which is the one thing that gives me pause. But I agree. I think as our technology improves, that could be a really strong customer acquisition channel.
Yeah, great presentation. I like what you're doing. As far as pilot testing in new markets, it sounds like you're fairly cautious. You want to get dialed in where you are first before you jump. But as far as antiquated, large industries, I personally come from insurance back in the day, and they spend money, but they're absolutely horrible and boring, and everything's the same. So I think that would be probably, whether it's auto and home or health and life, I think that would be, an easy vertical to transition into and see at least an initial, uptick in that industry. So
Awesome. Thank you.
So, sorry, one more.
Yeah.
You have technical talent on here. Can you be more specific? What are you looking for? Just like regular dev, CTO,
Yeah.
outsource?
So Lance and I are marketing and sales dudes. Yep. And so we've outsourced some of it. But at the end of the day, as much as we can do is just, hey, I know, here's a company over here. I like these elements of that. I'm using some of this technology to get my MVP off the ground. I've got this over here that I want to become, and I want to mash it all together. That's as well as we can do in terms of explaining it, right? And so we've got an old friend from Zinch that runs a dev shop or a dev organization who outsources some to India, but project management's here in the US. I don't know, Cash Merrill, good guy if anybody's looking for those kinds of resources. So we have that going on, but we think that we don't want to be the stereotypical Utah sales first, product later type of company, because to really win, you need a product that really adds value and can kick some ass. So that's where we are. We think we don't know, we're just not well versed enough to know, is that a product guy that can lead the dev shop, or do I need a guy that can code it and help me figure out the best strategy for it? Does that person exist? I don't know. So we're working some of the connections that we have, but that's an area that we're really comparatively weak in. And so that's why it's a focus to say, okay, what's the roadmap here to make sure that we have a really strong product technologically speaking, because we think the market's there and there's good validation. Okay.
I apologize if I missed this in your slides, but could you talk about your pricing for your services?
Yeah. So we have a combined approach of a CPL, or cost per lead model, on the lower end, and then that transitions into a subscription model. So if they're generating a lot of inquiries, we've just found that if we continue to charge at a per inquiry price, we price ourselves out. And so we then cap it at a subscription. So in higher ed, right now it's $1,500 a month for a number of different offers that we'll deploy across their site and design and optimize, et cetera. So currently it's sort of a software-enabled service where our team is doing the build, the design, and the maintenance on it. So that's how we price it. Okay. Thanks so much, everybody. Appreciate it.
So